Good afternoon. Today we are going to read Mark chapter 15. We've got one more day in Mark, and then we will be in Luke. So let's read Mark chapter 15. Jesus delivered to Pilate. And as soon as it was morning, the chief priests held a consultation with the elders and scribes and the whole council. And they bound Jesus and led him away and delivered him over to Pilate. And Pilate asked him, "Are you the king of the Jews?" And he answered him, "You have said so." And the chief priest accused him of many things. And Pilate again asked him, "Have you no answer to make? See how many charges they bring against you." But Jesus made no further answer, so that Pilate was amazed. Pilate delivers Jesus to be crucified. Now at the feast he used to release for them one prisoner for whom they asked. And among the rebels in prison who had committed murder in the insurrection, there was a man called Barabbas. And the crowd came up and began to ask Pilate to do as he usually did for them. And he answered them, saying, "Do you want me to release for you the king of the Jews?" For he perceived that it was out of envy that the chief priest had delivered him up. But the chief priest stirred up the crowd to have him release for them Barabbas instead. And Pilate again said to them, "Then what shall I do with the man you call the king of the Jews?" And they cried out again, "Crucify him." And Pilate said to them, "Why? What evil has he done?" But they shouted all the more, "Crucify him." So Pilate, wishing to satisfy the crowd, released for them Barabbas, and having scourged Jesus, he delivered him to be crucified. Jesus is mocked. And the soldiers led him away inside the palace, that is the governor's headquarters, and they called together the whole battalion, and they clothed him in a purple cloak, and twisting together a crown of thorns, they put it on him, and they began to salute him, "Hail, King of the Jews!" And they were striking his head with a reed and spitting on him, and kneeling down in homage to him. And when they had mocked him, they stripped him of the purple cloak and put his own clothes on him, and they led him out to crucify him. The crucifixion. And they compelled a passerby, Simon of Cyrene, who was coming in from the country, the father of Alexander and Rufus, to carry his cross. And they brought him to the place called Golgotha, which means place of a skull. And they offered him wine mixed with myrrh, but he did not take it. And they crucified him and divided his garments among them, casting lots for them, to decide what each should take. And it was the third hour when they crucified him. And the inscription of the charge against him read, "The King of the Jews." And with him they crucified two robbers, one on his right and one on his left. And those who passed by derided him, wagging their heads and saying, "Aha, you who would destroy the temple and rebuild it in 3 days, save yourself and come down from the cross." See, the problem is people were believing lies that Jesus didn't say, "I'm going to destroy the temple and rebuild it." He said the temple will fall and will be rebuilt in 3 days. But that's just like today. People hear a falsehood, but it meets what they want it to meet, and so they just continue saying it and believing it instead of looking and seeing the truth for themselves. So also the chief priests with the scribes mocked him to one another, saying, "He saved others, he cannot save himself. Let the Christ, the King of Israel, come down now from the cross, that we may see and believe." Those who were crucified him also reviled him. The thing is, if he'd come down, they wouldn't have believed him. They would have had something else. They wouldn't have believed him. The death of Jesus. And when the sixth hour had come, there was darkness over the whole land until the 9th hour. And at the 9th hour Jesus cried with a loud voice, Eloi, Eloi, lema sabachthani, which I don't think I pronounced that correctly, which means, my God, why have you forsaken me? And some of the bystanders, hearing it, said, Behold, he is calling Elijah. And someone ran and filled a sponge with sour wine, put it on a reed, and gave it to him to drink, saying, Wait, let us see whether Elijah will come to take him down. And Jesus uttered a loud cry and breathed his last. And the curtain of the temple was torn in two from top to bottom. And when the centurion who stood facing him saw that in this way he breathed his last, he said, Truly this man was the Son of God. Now I believe we talked about this in Matthew, but I want y'all to understand the curtain was not like curtains we have today. If I remember correctly, it was a heavy woven fabric that was like 6 inches thick. So just imagine the strength it would have taken to tear something like that in half. And the fact that it was torn from top to bottom. I mean, if we're going to walk up to something that's mounted up higher than we are like that, a curtain or something, we're going to tear it. We're going to start at the bottom and start ripping it and rip it up to the top. But it was ripped top to bottom, which signified that God ripped it. That was his way of saying, you don't have to go to the priest anymore. You come directly to me, because Jesus has paid the final price for us to approach God on our own. There were also women looking on from a distance, among who were Mary Magdalene, and Mary the mother of James the younger, and of Joseph, and Salome. When he was in Galilee, they followed him and ministered to him, and there were also many other women who came up with him to Jerusalem. Jesus is buried. And when the evening had come, since it was the day of preparation, that is, the day before the Sabbath, Joseph of Arimathea, a respected member of the council, who was also himself looking for the kingdom of God, took courage and went to Pilate and asked for the body of Jesus. Pilate was surprised to hear that he should have already died. And summoning the centurion, he asked him whether he was already dead. And when he learned from the centurion that he was dead, he granted the corpse to Joseph. And Joseph bought a linen shroud, and taking him down, wrapped him in the linen shroud, and laid him in a tomb that had been cut out of the rock. And he rolled a stone against the entrance of the tomb. And Mary Magdalene and Mary the mother of Joseph saw where he was laid. And that's the end of Mark 15. Now, if you notice, it said he wrapped Jesus' body, but he didn't have time to prepare him for burial. So when we hear later that the women went to the tomb, that's what they were going to do, was to, just like when we take a body to the funeral home, they have things they have to do. They were going to prepare Jesus' body for his burial so that it would be done correctly and in honor and in respect. So, excuse me. Thank y'all for being with me today, and tomorrow we will end up Mark chapter 16. Thank y'all.